Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk about bushcrafting. The reason is because I did a video previously that was talking about preppers versus homesteaders, and I mentioned a little bit in there about bushcrafting. And so I thought I would give you a little bit of a background on bushcrafting in my life versus prepping versus homesteading. So that instead of feeling like I'm attacking one or the other or not appreciative of one as much as I am of the other, you'll kind of understand what my background is. So in my early 20s, I was what I would consider a bushcrafter, kind of a hobby bushcrafter. I had a job, and on the weekends or in my free time, I would build primitive structures, and I would harvest natural resources off of the ground at my parents' farm. And I would do this winter and summer and spring. I did it all year round. I absolutely loved being outdoors, and I loved harvesting from the land and feeling like I was doing something really skillful and cool and self-reliant. And it was really, really fun. And I had some really good skills. And what it ended up coming down to was a matter of calories. The reason that I didn't raise my family to be a bushcrafting family is that bushcrafting relies on your being at 100% of the time. It doesn't allow for sick days. It doesn't allow for you being off your game for even a second. And even if you are at 100%, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to have that wildlife wander past at the right time when you're at your best, ready to shoot it with an arrow or with a handgun. And so for bushcrafting, the reason why I'm not a huge proponent of bushcrafting is because for the number of calories that you have to expend in order to survive, you have got to be a master craftsman that lives in an area that is still pristine enough that you have wildlife to go hunt. In our area, we're in backwoods Idaho, and our streams are artificially recharged with fish every year, which means that if we had a shit hit the fan type of a situation, the government would not be supplying our streams with fish anymore. And if everybody and their dog only had fish as a supply of food for their family, those streams would go dead very, very quickly. The same thing goes for deer. In our area, we have a hunting season. The reason for that is that we are a desert. We don't have a whole lot of cover for deer. If we lived back east where there was a lot of grays and a lot of browse all year round and a lot of rainfall, so there was a lot of vegetation, we probably wouldn't need a hunting season. But we have a hunting season because we live in a desert. The deer come down into the valleys to eat the farmers' fields, and because they're in fields, someone who was a bushcrafter who was going out to hunt these deer out in the fields would need to be really stealthy, because if there wasn't a hunting season, these deer would be more alert at all seasons, and the more hunting that was being done down in the valleys, the more the deer would go back up into the hills. And when you're stalking a deer, it takes a lot of calories. And so you go hunt a deer, you get the deer after hiking in for 10 miles, you get the deer. Well, now you have to pack the deer out. How many calories is it going to take you to get that deer out? So then you've got this deer over your shoulder that you have to walk out for 3 miles. And if you get back to base camp, and there's nobody there to then relieve you and allow you to rest from that and to feed you, to put food in front of you and say, now rest, dear. And they go and they finish cleaning the deer and they get it ready to either salt or to smoke, then your reserves of calories are going to dwindle very, very quickly. And that's if you do catch a deer. If you do get the deer, then good job. And then once you get this deer back to camp, you need to be able to salt it or dry it. Now, if you're bushcrafting, you don't have 200 pounds of salt at your camp to be able to salt this animal. So instead you're going to have to smoke it. So if you're in a shit hit the fan situation, you trying to smoke this deer is going to send up that smoke signal to tell everybody else where you are. Hey guys, this is where the guy is that just shot the deer. Do you want to come take the deer away from him? So how are you going to get that deer processed without sending up a red flag? So if you're there alone, you don't have anybody to look out as a scout to say, hey, watch for people, watch for predators, whether they're people or animals, to make sure that nobody comes and steals our deer. If you're out there on your own, you don't have that lookout. But what if you stalk that deer 10 miles and then it turns out that you didn't get anything? A lot of the bushcrafting YouTube videos that you see are people harvesting frogs or harvesting bark off trees or plants on the ground, and that's fine and good. Those are good supplements to a bushcrafting diet. But a bushcrafter who's living off the land needs calories. If you're building a home, I have built cob homes before, or stick and mud homes, or straw bale homes, and it's grueling work. If you're doing it in a time efficient manner so that it actually is ready when you need it, then you're working constantly, and you're sweating and you're thirsty and you might get sunstroke. All of these things are possibilities, but you need to get this shelter up. If you don't have somebody bringing you food so that you can keep working like this, then it means you have to take time off to go find that food. And if it's food in the wild, it's very lean. It doesn't have a huge amount of calories, which is why in previous times people ate a lot of lard. They ate a lot of very deep fried, lots of butter, these kind of things. And it's because it packed a really big calorie punch without having to eat for long periods of time all this lean meat. You needed something that had some fat. And it's why I say, instead of thinking solo bushcrafter, think community hunter. So you have a community that you base, even if you all bug out together, because it's the young men that go out and hunt and bring the food back, and it's the wives that prepare the food and take care of the children and finish the processing of the meat while the young men rest and recover. And the ones who already have blown out knees and bad backs are the ones who gather the wood and repair the homes and protect the community while the young hunters are gone. That is really how bushcrafting is meant to work. Bushcrafting, it's amazing to have these skills, to know how to start a fire, to know how to build a shelter. They are not a guarantee. Nothing is a guarantee, but they're really in no way a guarantee or the first option you should go to in a shit hit the fan situation. One instance of this is that my cousin, who is a skilled outdoorsman, he was raised out in the wilds doing fun recreational types of things, and he was snowmobiling during our worst winter that I can remember, and his snowmobile fell into a creek, if I remember correctly. He got separated from the group. A big storm came up, a blizzard, and it got really cold. I think it was like -30 Fahrenheit, and he left his snowmobile because he knew he was going to freeze to death if he didn't keep moving. Now, did he go build himself a snow fort? Did he go try to build a little shelter out of pine boughs and start a fire? No, he went and broke into a cabin. He went and broke into a cabin, broke the window, climbed into the cabin, and he survived. Because if he had tried to build a shelter out there, they didn't find him until the next morning. Even though he had all this snowmobile gear and everything on, he by himself, without the appropriate gear, in a very short amount of time, if he had stayed out in that snow, he would have died of exposure using things like snow caves and building, rough shelters at the drop of a hat in the middle of a blizzard, if you have another option, will get you killed. The essence of bushcrafting is to use what your surroundings are, not to go primitive, but to use what your surroundings have to offer in order to allow you to survive. For instance, if you're lost in a blizzard, in a vehicle, stay with your vehicle. You keep the vehicle on, but you check your tailpipe to make sure snow hasn't blown into your tailpipe so you're not giving yourself carbon monoxide poisoning. If it's going to be a long-term type of a thing, you tear the seats up and you take that foam and you stick it inside your clothes so that you have the extra insulation from your foam in your car. You put your baby inside your big coat. You make sure that you have a 72-hour kit in the back of your vehicle so that you have food, flares, light, matches, any of these things that you would need. Make sure you have them in your vehicle. And when I was bushcrafting, the reason I stopped bushcrafting was because I looked around and I realized if I tried to live in this structure that I just built, I would get eaten alive by mosquitoes at night. If you've seen Primitive Technology, you've seen his little hut in his area, I would imagine mosquitoes are a problem, but he doesn't have any mosquito screening, any mosquito nets up around his structure. And so the odds of him getting malaria or some other mosquito-borne disease are pretty good, because with his technology, he wouldn't be able to create a mosquito-proof fabric. That doesn't mean that what he's doing isn't beautiful, but it does mean that if he was out there by himself for an extended period of time, he would most likely get sick. Other thing is with Primitive Technology, notice the tan lines on his arms. It means he doesn't live out here in this little hut. He's not living out here. He's going during the week, he's going somewhere else to make a living and to eat, and he comes on the weekend and he's doing these things on a weekend. So when we're kind of judging the carrying capacity of our surroundings for a living that is like bushcrafting, be aware of the background and the reality of what's happening with these people that you see bushcrafting. Same thing goes for Lily. Is it Bushcrafting with Lily or Lily something? She's a cute little redhead in Europe, and she shows bushcrafting, but I want you to notice that she does bring her own thermos. She has her own coffee. She has a modern sleeping bag. She's building these great structures, but she's not living there. She goes and visits her little campsite. She doesn't live there constantly all year round with no other supplies coming in. If your goal is survival, if your goal is to stay healthy, and especially if you have a family that's relying on you, start building a bushcrafting community where you have plans of what you would do, and where hopefully you'll have a home base where you'll have quite a bit of food storage and livestock. That would be my advice. As one who has done the bushcrafting, while I was doing the bushcrafting, I was also working for the state, monitoring fish streams, and looking at how much wildlife and how much real edibles there were out in the wild. Yes, there's edibles out in the wild, but there's not enough calories in them to keep you going at a pace of 10 miles a day without a community to go back to that allows you to sleep well at night and that feeds you whatever it is you caught, so you have a chance to rest and rebuild. When I talk about a system being degraded and why it's hard, it would be difficult to bushcraft and stay alive in our area, it's because some of our food isn't safe to eat anymore. Some places aren't safe to harvest food from anymore. You don't really ever know who has been spraying their fields because they have leafy spurge or spotted knapweed or stuff like that. You don't really know where it's safe to eat. You have to really educate yourself about what and when and where it's safe to eat things anymore. And I feel like using bushcrafting as your main source of support in a shit hit the fan is a frightening thing to do. Especially, again, if you have a family to support. And that's my 2 cents, and I'll probably make some enemies and lose some friends over that one, but I want to be really clear about carrying capacity and physical limitations.